So today, as we said, I will present the business strategy first, because there is a logic behind all this. Then we proceed later today with the business model. And tomorrow I will present you the business plans, how you can make a business plan. Mainly what I want to stress at this point is that what we are going to do is to show you the path, to show you the tasks and the issues that you have to do if you want to proceed in preparing and making a company, making a business activity. We do not expect to, we are not able, I would say, to give all the answers and the issues, but I will explain further in the presentation later. So we expect that at the end of this course, you will have improved your knowledge about what you have to think when you wish to start a business, how you should proceed in steps for an efficient starting. And we expect that the skills of yours for understanding basic economic issues on market, competition, planning will be improved. So let's talk about the very basic things. When you do a firm, when you do a company, the most important is that you invest money and you get a long-term return. So the fundamental unit of this strategic analysis is to identify the market that you want to target, the market segment. And the company economic performance results from two different distinct causes. From the market segment, where you can see the rules of competition, and from the relative, the relative position within the market segment. In the first case, we have the rule of competition. In the second, we have the sources of competitive advantage. The strategy must address both issues. So what is the market segment? We're going to see how often we have to choose this market segment. How long will this strategy last? What does sustainable mean? What does advantage mean? What does integration mean? So these are common questions that are necessary to answer when we start thinking about a business. We have to examine the value chain in the business strategy. So in the value chain, we see two parts. One is the support activity. So we need to know, discuss, elaborate a plan for the film infrastructure, for the human resource management, technology development and procurement. These are the necessary support activities. And then we have what is the logistics, the operation, the inbound logistics, the outbound, what we offer outside of the company, the marketing and the sales, and if, in some cases, we may have after-sale services. These are the primary activities. So what we want is that we create a margin. The margin is the important word in this value chain. This is another way of presenting this, I said before, the value equation. So on the one side, you can see what the customers are willing to pay to buy what we are going to offer. Then on the right side, you see in the center the cost of creating this value. How much will cost us to create the value which we are going to sell to the customers, and to which extent this cost is less than the value that we are going to charge the customers. This margin is the key for a successful business. So this is a very, very important image that we should have in our mind. So we have to see different types of strategies that we are going to decide to approach. We have to decide if we are going to deliver a good product or service at the lowest cumulative cost, to configure activities to create a significant and sustainable cost advantage over all the other competitors, because we are going to sell something that maybe it's already sold in the market. So we have to have an advantage in the cost so that our product becomes attractive. Complementarities make cost advantage far more difficult to imitate. And cost advantage arises out of activity cost drivers. So cost advantage translates to above average profits if the firm can command prices at or near the industry average. But cost leaders must always maintain parity or proximity in satisfying buyer needs. Cost leadership often require avoiding or curtailing activities that contribute to non-price value. For example, non-essential services, some product features. These are some problems that we are going to maybe face when we are discussing the cost leadership. Sometimes we may have a misunderstanding of the actual costs. Sometimes we can have false perception of cost drivers. We may not focus on the correct operation, or we fail to exploit linkages, or we ignore competitor behavior because this is a completely dynamic system in which the competitor, which will, of course, see our activities in the business, may start doing things to in some way, defeat us in this market segment. Maybe we are going to have a poor implementation of the plans that we have added, is how we can act incrementally, and the last, not to have a cost management program. The other way that we can start our business is not only the cost. We may decide the differentiation strategy. What it means, differentiation strategy, is that we try to address something that is not already covered. So we select one or more common needs valued by many buyers. So we present something new. We configure activities to meet these needs uniquely. Only us, we can offer this new different product. Selectively add cost in the differentiating activities, if necessary, to achieve uniqueness. And successful differentiation, which leads to premium prices. Differentiations leads to above average profitability, provided the firm maintains cost proximity to competitors. Because if we can present a different product with less cost, then we have a very good profitability. Differentiation must choose cost-effective forms of differentiation. This is what I stressed before. And differentiation must strictly control costs in activities not involved in differentiation. But then again here we have some common pitfalls. For example, creating differentiation that the buyers do not value. We think that this will be appreciated by the buyers, but the buyers do not like this new product or new form of the product that we are offering. We overfulfill the buyer needs. We look too narrow at the sources of differentiation. We are charging an excessive price premium for this differentiation. We fail to understand the cost of differentiation. We ignore the need to signal value to customers because we have to explain to the customers what is the value that we offer. We fail to recognize buyer segments, creating differentiation that competitors can emulate quickly or cheaply. We start to offer something new, but very quickly the competitors can make the same, and maybe they can make it in less costly, lower prices. So we have to choose. We need to choose. Should we imitate, which is a common error in strategy? Strong tendencies to deny or ignore trade-offs. Trade-offs is very important that we're going to see later. These tendencies allow managers to avoid making tough choices. Strategy requires choices which are distinct from those of competitors. This is very important. We should do something new. The sustainability of differences requires trade-offs, and the development of unique capabilities necessitates commitment to a consistent strategic path. Now, we have to see why sometimes companies fail to choose strategies. Economic issues. We have benign competitors which allow choices to be avoided. The necessity of choice is not understood. Operational effectiveness is confused with strategy. Movement towards the productivity frontier creates the illusion that the best of all worlds is possible. Companies seek to meet customer needs. The choice limits flexibility, and choice appears to constrain growth. Organizational issues. Denying trade-offs is seen as motivating greater organizational effort. Organizational incentives punish choices but tolerate mediocrity if the competitors are doing it. Stalemates between organizational factions force sub-optimization. So, let's see what are the characteristics of an effective strategy. First of all, clarity. These are the questions, all these are, as I said before, the most important issues that we have to address if we want to proceed to a successful business. Clarity. Is it clear that what we are and are not going to do? So we have to make clear what is our purpose of the company. Consistency, internal consistency. Are the choices that we have made consistent with one another? Is the company public strategy consistent? External consistency. Are the choices consistent with the competitive environment? Again, we come to the most important element, which is the market. We are going to sell something, we are going to produce something that is already in some forms existing in the market. So we are in a competition. This is the most important issue, the competition. So we have to see if these choices that we do can address the competitive environment. Focus. Does it provide focus for members in prioritizing their work? So are all the members of our staff have this as a priority in their strategy? The foresight. We have to see if the choices that we are going to make are consistent with the trends in technology, in demographics, in regulation, which will redefine our environment. Because today we may make some choices, we may decide to proceed to a certain direction, but possibly technology or other elements will change the environment. Here, an example could be that we develop diesel cars for the moment, and we think that the market is big, but suddenly regulation, for example, on climate change may make our product as obsolete or even facing extraordinary charges. And implementability, if all the choices that we made are supported by concrete policies and actions so that we can really implement the strategy that we have decided. Strategic mindsets. These are very important mindsets that we keep when we think about our strategy, business strategy. Strategy is continuously improving operational effectiveness. We have to continuously improve the situation, the operation situation. Strategy is a race to one ideal position. We try to come to the best possible position. We have to have a competitive advantage which depends on core competencies or critical resources. And competitive success arises from maintaining flexibility adapting to hyper competition and constantly transforming the industry. We have to keep these four important principles, let's say, because this will guide us in the strategy development and will always be our mindset. The strategic thinking logic flow analyzes all the different elements that we need to come for the decisions at the end. So we have to make the market segment analysis. We have to see what is the scope of the market of the segment, what are the economic drivers of the market segment. We have to see the value analysis, the end customer, what constitutes the end customer value, what the end customer is expecting, and what are the channels through which this value will come to him. The segmentation, what are the strategically distinct segments? How attractive is each segment? Because we have the market segment, but maybe in the market we may choose completely different segments and which also have different attractiveness and importance. The relative position is the capabilities. How do our capabilities compare to our competitors? We see again that this word competition enters again in this concept. Always we should think about competition. Competition is the most important element because in the business environment, the competition is the key to success, is to overcome the competitors. We have to see about the cost, how do our costs compare to our competitors? If we are most costly, there is no possibility that we are going to have a successful business. The competitive dynamics, how will our competitors and suppliers react to our actions? Because we said that we have two types of competitions. One is to be, as the situation is now, how we can be better than our competitors. But the other issue is the dynamics, which means that our competitors will not stand still as they are now, but they are going to react to our actions. So they are going to take their own, they are going to change their own strategy, and they are going to try to get back to the position they were before. And internal is for us how this implication of the organization of pursuing the choice of our strategy should influence the organization of our company. This will lead us to some positions, the strategic choices, position A with an advantage X, position B with an advantage Y. So here we can see some examples of what strategy is in changing the strategic mindsets. Strategy is continuously improving operational effectiveness. Strategy is creating a unique and sustainable competitive position. So here you see the support activities. So this is the firm infrastructure, which now is the financing, the planning, the investor relations, the human resource management, the recruiting, training, compensation system, the technology development, what kind of product we are going to design, to test, the procurement, because certainly we need procurement of components, of machinery, we have to do advertising and other services. So this is what I presented in the very beginning, the support activities and the primary activities, which will create the margin, and with here by saying more details, which are under each type. The inbound logistics, we have to see the material storage, the data collection, the service customer access. In the operation, we have to see the assembly, the component fabrication, the branch operations. Outbound logistics, what is the order processing, warehousing, report and preparation. Marketing and sales, what is the sales force, how we are going to do the advertising, how we are going to do the trade shows, how we are going to do the proposal writing for this market sales. And the after-sales service, are we going to have support, repair, what kind of installation we are going to create for all this, which may not be necessary. The primary activities. So companies compete through performing discrete activities in which competitive advantage resides, and competitive position is reflected in the configuration of activities adopted, so that at the end we have the margin that we want. The strategy is a race, as we said, to one ideal position. Strategy is the creation of a different and incompatible position. So we try to create something which is different than the other. So positioning difference are necessary, but not sufficient for sustainable competitive advantage. The fact that we are different is necessary, but it's not sufficient. We have to be different in some profitable and needed by the customer's way. Sustainability depends on the presence of trade-offs between positions. More of A means less of B. Trade-offs are incompatibilities between positions that create the need for choice. Trade-offs arise because of inconsistencies in reputation or identity with customers. Differences in the best configuration of activities. Limits on internal control and coordination. Here we see some positioning trade-offs. This is an example of service varieties. We have, for example, on one side, Southwest Airlines, which has the strategy of point-to-point short-haul service, no hubs, primarily between medium-sized cities and airports. It has a strategy of very low prices, automated ticketing, limited use of travel agent, limited passenger services, standardized fleet. Probably we know this type of airlines, we may call them low-cost airlines. A typical airline, on the other hand, has a hub-and-spoke system centered around major and international airports. It has a complex fare structure offering different prices and tickets to business travelers, to non-refundable economy, promotional fares. The ticketing goes through large sales staff and extensive use of travel agents so that the market is more extended, there is more market to be reached. Sophisticated computer reservation system linking multiple airlines, because we said that the typical airline also serves as a hub and serves connections. And it offers full passenger services, including multiple seating classes, assigned seats, beverage, meal services, etc. And then it has a mixed fleet to accommodate varied flights, lengths, and route demands. So here we have two different strategies. The question is, of course, this is which one, if we want to do our business and we want to do a business in the air transport, what approach, what strategy we would like to have. And depending on the different segments that we want to reach, maybe the approach will be different and the strategy will be different. The competitive advantage depends on core competencies or critical resources. So the competitive advantage arises from controlling an activity system tailored to a particular competitive position. And the competitive success arises from maintaining flexibility, adapting, as we said, to hyper competition and constantly transforming the industry. The competitive advantage depends on the discipline to pursue a distinctive strategy consistently over time, while continuously improving operational effectiveness. Strategic continuity and continuous improvement. This is a very important issue. Strategic continuity over sustained periods contributes strongly to sustainable competitive advantage because it reinforces the identity with customers and channels, builds truly unique skills and capabilities, sharpens understanding of trade-offs, extends and strengthens the fit among activities, and facilitates improvements in operational effectiveness. So a strategic continuity must be combined with continuous improvement in operational effectiveness. There is often a tension between achieving sustainable advantage and maintaining the flexibility to respond to any conceivable structure change. We understand here the contradiction because we try to keep the strategic continuity, but also we have to be ready if there is need for structural changes, this to be able to take place. Here we have an example of alternative views of strategy. The implicit strategy model of the past decades was one ideal competitive position in the industry, benchmarking of all activities and achieving best practice, aggressive outsourcing, partnering to gain efficiencies. Advantages resting on a few key success factors, critical resources, core competencies, flexibility and rapid responses to all competitive and market changes. The competing model, which is the new, let's say, or another approach, if we can say, is alternative view, is a unique competitive position for the company. Activities tailored to strategy, clear trade-offs and choices vis-à-vis competitors. Competitive advantage arises from the fit across activities. Sustainability rests on the activity system, not the parts. Strategic continuity and operational effectiveness is a given. So, with all this presentation, what I tried to give you is all the issues that when you want to develop a strategy in your company, you have to consider. You have to keep in mind that depending on what you want to do, on what part of the market segment you want to address, there is always a different approach. And if you want to start your company, you have to see all these issues. Practically, this presentation is the list of all the tasks and the issues that someone should address if in his desire is to make a business. There are many paths and many ways that you can follow. And depending on the way that you want to develop your business, then you have a different approach and different strategies. You should keep in mind that if you want to do a company and you want to develop a strategy, these are the issues. The next step is that you either internally, if you are already a company with some years of experience and you want to develop a new business strategy, either you have inside your staff the capacity to discuss all this and study all these issues, or, which is also very common, you address to specific business advisors, business strategic consulting companies, which are doing exactly this analysis, these concepts, and they suggest to you what should be your business strategy if you want, as I said before, to produce something in a less costly way, or if you want to differentiate your product, or to differentiate a product which is already in the market and you want to make something new. So all these are the issues that a business strategy should address. I don't think that it is, I would say, easy to after a training to understand how you can use your business strategy for your company. You have to know that these are the issues that you have to think about. And then you should make a complete, thorough analysis so that you can make your business strategy. In the further readings, I mentioned two. There is a very, very important, from someone who is considered as the guru of the business strategy, Michael Porter. And I have here just two articles, if I may